Back again, and this time I have something very interesting to share. It's pretty much something, a lesson I've already shared on this channel, but it is, I'd say it's far more presented in a far more sophisticated way, in syllogism form, rather than the way I did it last time, or last times, I guess you could say, since I've done it multiple times. And this is going to be basically a video that is focused solely on this particular topic. So that means that it's going to be better than the times where I've talked about this topic, because in those times I was talking about it in the midst of videos about a variety of different things, which is far harder to catch, if you catch my drift. It's harder to catch the lesson if it's set up that way than if it's just one video focused solely on this. So here goes. So why do I have this here? Why am I talking about drama and fiction? Well, it's really quite simple. Drama does not lead to lack of realism. It doesn't all start with drama, okay? Drama didn't start illogical thinking in reality. If anything, it'd just be the other way around. It would be that illogical thinking started drama. Drama is the bad effects of illogical thinking. So how can the effect lead to the cause of itself? So therefore, this isn't rocket science to most people. But how does this connect to my philosophy arguments? Well, it's quite simple, really. This connects to what I've been saying all along, which is this central idea. That is simply that people, neurotypicals in history, have a sort of lack of realism to them. This really, really, really rich, abundant, endless supply of it. And for the reasons I've given, of course, but let's put those aside for a second and think about this for a second. If neurotypicals in history, all of them have this lack of realism, and it leads to them being dramatic, then all that really proves is that they have illogical thinking. But just because you have illogical thinking doesn't mean you acquired it because of you being illogical. At least according to people, at least according to the neurotypicals, this is the case. But in reality, this is not the case. You don't end up an illogical thinker if you started off logical. Because if you started off totally logical, you would never let yourself devolve into an illogical thinker, as it would just make you weaker, and all it would do is minimize the greatness of your experience, not maximize it. So, what does this imply, really? This implies that the average neurotypical in history did not start off totally logical, like these religions like to say. Christians like to say, oh, well, I'm only being illogical to people because I know all there is to know about religion. And it says that it's not really a big issue to be illogical. In fact, it's super weird and retarded and circular what they have going here in Christianity, where they say, well, it's actually fine to be illogical. Because according to our scriptures, being illogical is a form of logic. Because they say that what they use to justify this is their argument that sin is illogical, but because Jesus paid for their sins, it's better to sin than to not. And I've already, I've debunked so much in the Bible at this point, including why so many things about sins in the Bible. But regardless, my point still stands. It's that it doesn't really make any logical sense to say that they started off these enlightened, these enlightened people, these enlightened Christians, like they always like to say since the beginning of their freaking religion, oh my goodness, we're these divine, nigh omnipotent gods, and anybody who defies our religion is just some scum ant who should be crushed for eternity. Like, they just sound like sadistic, narcissistic monsters that come from hell that they talk about in their own religion. And half the time they say, oh, that's what we are, and then the other half they say, oh, but we're not, oh, we're not. I mean, they're acting exactly like their own scripture says demons would. Deceitful wild animals who have to resort to deluding themselves, alternate between delusion and non-delusion about a variety of different things in order to function in daily society. And that's what a narcissist is. Okay, that's a perfect description of a modern day narcissist, and any narcissist in history. So, is it more likely that these traits are attributed only to just narcissists who are delusional about religion? Is that what happened and the Bible is false? Or is it that that's not really the case? Is it that there's something more to this? Is it that being narcissistic is not bad in the long run? And you get what I'm saying? Like they're basically being narcissists, and they're deluding themselves so much about so many things because of it, while not knowing it, that it's all just so that they can function in daily society, and they come up with the most convoluted arguments in religion. So, is it more likely that this is the case? That they're just, delusional narcissists? Who start off illogical and as a result become dramatic? Or did they start off enlightened and then become illogical and then create drama? Like I said in the beginning of this video, you wouldn't start off completely logical and then become illogical. That wouldn't be evolving, that would be devolving. Why would they want to devolve? That would be their decision if they would or not. And they'd be fully well aware of why it would be better to not. And it wouldn't be better to devolve, even for them, at that point in time. So it makes no sense. It's just another way to easily destroy Christianity. It's a very, very, very stupid religion, as I've said, since the beginning of this channel. All the way to now, I'm still saying it. It's just, come on. I'm not making this stuff up. And literally, this is just super, super obvious proof right here. Come on. This is part of psychology. It's not rocket science. This is basic psychology. You start off illogical, and then you create drama. Like, that's a paradox to say you start off logical and then as a result of it, you do illogical things. Like completely logical being, wouldn't end up doing things as illogical as they're doing. Like, I get that there's levels of logical and illogical, but if they really were enlightened, as Christianity likes to say, that if Christians really were as enlightened as it says they are, then they wouldn't be doing things as illogical as they say. And I've already said that in other videos, but this is just a tool so that you can see why this is the case. You can come to this conclusion even easier when you couple it with the fact. I mean, you can use images to help you, like this. Drama evokes certain things in the brain to help you connect the dots here. It doesn't have to be images, but my point is, I presented all these facts already, but it's how I present them that matters most on this channel. And so that's why I keep experimenting. And I've had success on some videos. I've gotten likes on videos before, but very, very, very few ever. But still, it counts for something. So the bottom line is, Like I said, I have subscribers, but the bottom line is, you see what I'm saying? Like, this isn't coincidence. Like, let's say there was a narcissist that was a public figure, a celebrity for their narcissism, like a serial killer, right? Like any of the famous ones, everybody knows they're narcissists, but do average people say that those people started off logical and then became illogical because they had this great religion that gave them all sorts of excuses to help them get off to their own narcissism? And that actually justified it? Or was it just that wasn't the case and they were just delusional enough to think that their narcissism is justified by their stupid religious delusions? I mean, come on. That's all there is to it. And when I say I have to present things in a certain way, it goes beyond just images. You have to say certain things in a certain way at certain times, using certain words. And I get a better sense of which combinations I have to use the more I do this, because I just remember what I said last time, and last time, and the time before that, and time before that. And then eventually, that's where I'm here now, or, saying things the way I am in this video. So that's why sometimes I repeat arguments. Usually I don't. I mean, I do repeat a lot of arguments, but most of my videos don't consist of only repeated arguments. They almost always consist of completely new arguments. So yeah, most of them do, and I try to keep it that way because it's just better. But obviously, it's far better than just presenting the same arguments, but in very, very different ways. Because even if you did present it in ways that were far, far better, there's still no guarantee anybody would actually care. Because you could make something 1,000 times better than it was before, but it's still the same thing. And if people don't, and just because it is, people won't want to approve of it. If they didn't approve of it the first time, they won't approve of it even if it's 1,000 times better. Same goes with people. You could become 1,000,000 times better than you started off in society. But some people will hate you anyway, just because you're you. Just because they hate what you stand for. Because it goes against their narcissism. And it pains them because it goes against their narcissism. They're egotistical, they're narcissistic, they're childlike, they're very, 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 very childish, okay? They're like lab rats. They practically are. So that's, again, take people's opinions with a grain of salt, but especially do this. This is especially important when it comes to religion, as I've been saying since the beginning. Because again, what's more likely? That people started off narcissists and came up with their own ridiculous religions that make no sense, or that somehow there was a small minority of people that were not narcissists in the world that eventually decided, well, I want to actually I want to actually get behind this matter. I want to actually use a tangible level of skepticism when it comes to philosophy. And we're able to know if they were. I mean, they all said that, but but supposedly there was a minority with Christians. Christians were this small minority. The first Christians were this small minority that somehow were miraculously lucky enough to be the very few that were so incredibly smart when it came to philosophy. They actually did have the best philosophy when everybody else didn't. I mean, what are the chances of that, given all the arguments I've given on this channel being possibly true? All the theories, all the direct evidence I've given for why God wouldn't want things to go that way. for there to be a small minority starting off that, leads to that. I mean, think about it like this too. If there was a small minority called Christians who started the perfect religion, that was Christianity, then this could potentially ruin things in the long run for God's plan. Not because it could potentially I guess, and I don't mean insofar as everything the Bible says about how this would make God's plans work. I just mean just the simple fact of there being a first group that early on could be devastating in ways that most have not considered to be possible. It's like if there really was a small minority with that much power in the world that early on, then doesn't that seem like it doesn't really make sense for so many reasons? So, like, why would that not disturb the balance of things? I mean, it would just be one really small minority having all the power in terms of philosophy back then. And it could potentially, I'm not saying it would, disturb the balance of things. But you could also argue that it's a lot more potent into eternity for Christianity to just be another the first Christians to just be another faulty group of philosophers, rather than the one true philosophers in the beginning of history, or not in the beginning of history, but early history. Because ultimately, if you have countless groups like this in the world, like countless people who are just sorry for a lack of a better term here, but I guess you could say really bad at philosophy, just the average neurotypical. If it was like that, instead of one group being right in the beginning, then it would just be it leaves room for a lot more, I guess it leaves room for a lot more joy, to be honest. A lot more joy. And remember when I said in one of my videos I posted earlier today? Look, it's July 12th. The dates are posted. I did give the reasoning behind why joy is essentially superior to suffering, and joy is like the gold mine of creation. And if there's no joy ever, then pretty much everything else is meaningless or nigh meaningless. I already explained why. So yeah, I mean, it's just like, it doesn't really make any sense to say that it was just one group and the rest were wrong. Like, if anything, God would make it so that all were wrong in the beginning, and every person in the world is very wrong about philosophy in the beginning, or almost everybody. And this would just lead to there being more joy in the long run, because if it really was just one group being right, then, and it were Christians, right? Then it would mean Christianity is right, and then if things went the way Christianity says, that a lot of joy is minimized, not maximized in the long run. So it doesn't really make sense. Joy is the gold mine of existence, of creation. So if anything, God would actually sacrifice everything he could and eliminate every variable he could to make sure that to make sure that joy is maximized, or at least close to being maximized, rather than what the Bible says, where it's like it's not minimized, but it's closer to being minimized, far closer to being minimized than maximized, according to Christianity. So, plus, besides, what is the chances that there'd be one group that has these brains that have more empathy than the average individual? You know, this really small minority. And they just so happen, not only that, but they just so happen to be in the right place at the right time, so as to actually come together. Even back then, no matter how hard the conditions were in those days in the Bible, they come together, no matter where they were, what the conditions were, miraculously, to form Christianity. I mean, come on, what are the chances of that? I mean, Christianity has to come up with all kinds of convoluted arguments for how this happened. All of which use far too many presuppositions and use countless contradictions to logic. So, yeah, it's a very retarded religion. I mean, I'm not sorry at all for calling it retarded. It just simply is. I mean, to say it's not is to just sugarcoat and say, oh, well, it's not logic. No, I'm not gonna do that. Okay, I'm not going to pretend like I haven't already bashed this religion to holy hell on this channel out of nowhere for no logical reason. Okay, it's just, I mean, I've already done this a million times. Okay, so the bottom line is Christianity makes almost no sense in the face of my religion. Once again, proven by yours truly. Well, I'm out. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, share, subscribe.